Great day, my people. Great day, my people. I didn't want to be too long with this right here, man. Didn't want to be too long. We got things to do later on. But today is November 9th, 2025. And according to the date itself, it marks 1 year since the passing of Junior, passing of my son. And the actual day was the second Saturday in November, which was yesterday. So, yeah, I'm a year in. Actually, I'm officially a year in. And for me, to be honest with you, I thought that approaching this day for me, I thought it would be much more difficult than what it has been. So far, so good for me right now. This is my first year in. So far, so good. When it come down to me doing the work, I believe that right there played a big part, because what this right here feels like, it feels like a test. It feels like a test for the holidays to come. That's what it feels like. It feels like a test for the holidays to come, to see how far down my spirit can get pulled, and I'm just not allowing that to happen. So for this right here to be my first year, for me, I'm numb. That's what I am. I'm gonna tell you that right now. To be honest with you, I'm numb. And if you in a situation like me, I think that's probably the best spot for you to be right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like my energy is neutral right now. It's just neutral. I'm not, I don't feel low in spirit. You see what I'm saying? Because I prepared for this day, you know, doing the work. This right here is like it's like a early on holiday or something like this. And I know that some of the work had to work, because I didn't feel like this right here a year ago. I was decimated a year ago. So the work will pay off. The work will pay off. I will do something in his honor later on, in terms of, and it's nothing big, go out and get something to eat at an undisclosed location. But that'll be it. But other than that right there, man, you know, I've had all the butterflies waking up. I've had the 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning waking up and everything, man. I've had it. You know, it's been tight too. It's been real tight. But you know something? I didn't allow that energy to come in, because I knew it was coming. I knew how to work with it, and it was expected to come, and therefore that's how I knew how to handle it. But trust me, it's there. The pressure is there. All that stuff is there. But right now, for me, the best spot is to be numb. And that right there is just that might be a spiritual safety spot, you know. It might be a safety spot spiritually, because around this time right here, I wasn't feeling too well, you know. And I think, oh boy, I think this right here is just a test, man. I think this right here is a test for the holidays. See, one thing that I learned in this process right here is it's us. It would have been me putting the extra stress on myself because of a year later, what happened a year later. And I had to ask myself, this is how I got around this. I had to ask myself, am I willing to put myself back down through that turmoil? Am I willing to put myself back down through all that headache and all the work that I did? Am I willing to break all that right there, you know, to fall back inside that slump that I fought so desperately hard to get out of, okay? And no, I can't allow myself to do that on my watch if I can help it. And you can help it when you recognize it. You know, it's up to if you can recognize it or not. And I did a lot of work on trying to recognize this stuff, to where now that when it happened, I realized that I have a choice in that. You know, I have a choice. The only time you really don't have a choice in that is for the biggest end when you don't see it coming. And I've been getting different energies, from different spirits, and some of them ain't been so good, but I've always had something in there to counter that. That right there came along with me, again, doing the work. I'm going to say that 1,000 times because it wouldn't have happened had I not did the work. Had I not been careful, had I not been mindful of what I was thinking, using perception and discernment. Them two keys right there, perception and discernment, is going to be very, very, very pivotal when you're going through this right here. It's going to be very pivotal because you're going to have to use a lot of that stuff right there in order for you to overcome some of the hurdles that you're going to face, some of the triggers that you're going to see, some of the difficulties that you're going to face along this right here path, So for me, that's what I started doing. I started paying attention to that stuff and paying attention to how it is expected for me to react. Do you understand? Dealing with my spirit. And every time it's like that evil spirit, it can't get in. I won't allow a way in. You see what I'm saying? So when November 9th come around here, instead of me looking at that day as something sad and bringing myself all the way down to pity pretty much, you know what I'm saying, for something that I can't deal with physically, I can't do nothing about that physically, that would do me a disservice. It would do me, you know what I'm saying, it wouldn't do me any great for me to carry myself down that path and know that I'm going to carry myself down that path and try to do absolutely nothing to stop it. Yeah, it hurt. Absolutely. No, I ain't going to sit up there and tell you it don't. I'll be lying to you. I ain't going to lie to you. Heck, yeah, it hurt. But that's only the thought of it, though. You see what I'm saying? That's only that's the thought of it. Because see, here's what I had to learn to do. I had to learn to separate what I seen with my eyes with the pain that's associated with the injuries that I seen. You see, and that's what I had to do. That's what I was doing. And that right there was one of many things that made it so hard for me to release and accept the situation, because when you look at the damages, when you look at the condition of your child behind what happened, that looked painful. But you got to realize they didn't feel that. They didn't feel that. And when it's confirmed with you through them, because you can hear them, then you have to start moving a little differently. You know what I mean? You have to start moving a little differently when these moments start to hit you, because they're coming. They're coming. You know, that's one thing I can say. See, another thing that I tried to shatter, that one of the things that I wanted to shatter as well, is when you're going through this, you're going to have a lot of people that's going to say, hey, man, this right here going to stick with you for a real long time. It's going to take a while to get over. It's going to take this right here. And to some, it might. But I use that right there as, you know, as some type of motivation to try to help me not let that happen. You see what I'm saying? I don't want to be stuck down in that grieving area. Because again, like I told y'all 1,000 times, that's where all the pain is. That's where all the pain is down there in that area. You don't know what that look like? Don't go down there. I done been down there. And at times I dibble and dabble down there in that area, because you get so lost in the mind, then you got to come back to your senses. You got to come back to your senses and everything. So while you working on that right there, you don't have time to release all that for where you trying to go up here. You don't have time to release all that to go back here and start grieving. No, that's not what we doing. We not about to do that. And I'm not going to tell you that it's easy to do it. But when you as numb as I am, I'm taking advantage of it, because it's not allowing me to feel grief right now. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm going to milk it. And I advise you to do the same thing if you're going through it. Milk it. I'll milk it, because that's exactly what I'm doing right now, because I don't ever know when this stuff going to hit me. Because now, whatever that evil spirit is that know that I'm up on him, he got to come at me a different way. Whatever it is, it got to come at me a different way. And almost every time that it come at me, I'm there to block it. You know what I'm saying? I'm there to put some ice on it. So, not about to get there. And so now I'm sitting up here. I thought about something just sitting here talking to y'all. I said, well, I was talking to somebody earlier, and I said, well, because I feel this way, I said, well, maybe Junior, that right there is my motivation on the other side now. Yeah, this right here is how, see, here go the thing. On the physical side, Junior was my motivation here to make me a better person. You know what I'm saying? For me to be a better person, in terms of a better father, and just an overall person, just period, right? And that was here. So when he left here, it felt like all the work that I put in, not just on him, but the work that I put in on myself, all that stuff went in vain, right? So you tried to go back inside some of them old habits, and it just became a way of life. That's not you no more. So that right there was something that I learned while he was here. But now that he's gone, and I felt like all that stuff right there was in vain, I had to change my perception, right? This is what I had to do. I had to change my perception and transfer what I use as motivation here on the physical realm. I had to transfer that energy to the spirit realm and say, wait a minute, that's my motivation to learn more spirit stuff, more spirit work, more about myself, more about where he came from. Because guess what? That right there is my anchor now. That's my anchor. He was so close to me down here that when he left, I wanted to go with him. And let's just be honest though. We want to go with him, but we ain't about to go with him. Not on our own dime. Sometimes it'll feel like that. It sure will. It'll feel like that. And I'm gonna tell you how you know that you don't want to go with him. Not like that. You don't care about going if it came down to it. But let me tell you something. The reason why you ain't gonna go with him when he left as bad as you wanted to is because you found every reason to stay here. Because now you got kids. So you say, I'm going to stay here for my kids. Oh, I got to stay here for my parents. Or I got to stay here for somebody. But I'm going to tell you something. That the will to live, if you focus on the one that passed, the will to live, you will see a bigger light. If you just focused on them moving forward, it's going to be a message that they're going to give you somewhere in there. Because you focus on them, but you ain't going to get that message because you focus on what you seen in the physical. But when you realize that on the spiritual, you trying to follow them, indirectly, you're going to be learning some stuff. It's going to teach you some stuff that you, like I told you, it's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. And, you're going to start understanding certain things about energy that you didn't understand. See, it ain't about this physical stuff no more. You got the physical end down pat. You know how it's going to be on the physical end. And so I know that when my grief come back around, I know I'm only thinking about that on the physical end at this point. For me, I'm only dealing with this grief stuff on the physical end. And that right there don't mean do not let that out. I'm not saying that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying don't let that out. I just know that when it comes down to grief on my end, depending on how low my energy get, how low I allow my energy to get, I know I'm dealing with the physical part. Because like I said, once you know that you're dealing on the spirit end, there is none of this stuff. There ain't none of this stuff right here, man. It's a lie. All that stuff is a lie. You know what I'm saying? There is none of this stuff. You don't feel this stuff on the other end. So it's up to you. It was up to me to get myself in tune with myself so I could be able to recognize these things. So when days like this came around talking about the first time, the first year and stuff like that, I could be able to hold myself together. Last time I had on these pair of glasses, I was out of it. Last time I had on these glasses on a live, I was out of it. Not now. And that was the whole thing. Is to hurry up and get out that hole. Get up out that hole. Some people want to be in that hole And I let them stay there if that's where they want to be. But not me. That's the whole thing. When you're going through this right here, the object is to get up out that hole as fast as you can. You don't lay around in it. You get out that bad boy as much as you can. Because guess what? For me, I know it's not over with. This right here was just the beginning. I don't got enough tears no more. Not that I know what I know. I don't got enough tears for the first year, which is in November 9th. Then Thanksgiving, which is coming in the same month in November. Following month, Christmas Eve and Christmas. And then New Year's coming in January. And then January 21st, his birthday. How many times I supposed to cry? I'm out. I ain't got nothing else to cry. Only thing else I got left is to elevate and learn something different. But he gonna have to teach me. It's gonna have to come from the other end. And that right there, when you learning from that perspective, you don't have time to grieve. You know what I'm saying? You don't have time for that right there, because you're gonna realize that grieving only sets you back. It only sets you back. I'm not saying that you can help it. I'm only saying you can regulate it, because you can't help when this stuff come in and hit you. You cannot, it just come in randomly. But if you can help it, you can regulate it. But you got to know what it look like. You got to know what it feel like. And so for the past, I ain't going to say, because it done been a year, so we talking about 12 months. I'm going to say within the past at least 6 months. At least the past 6 months, I've been trying to find that soft spot, so to say. You know what I mean? I started talking about this right here 6 months ago. So it took me about 6 months to at least try to find a way to start. It took me about 6 months. I was in La La Land. I was in that phys- I couldn't make out nothing for at least, 4 to 6 months after this right here. After, the incident with my son. And it done been a ride. That's why I said in between that year, y'all, I'm not going to lie. In that year, there been a lot of tears. It have. It done been a lot of tears. It done been a lot of discomfort. It done been many arguments. It done been a lot of hair splitting. It done been some smiles in there. It done been some laughs in there. It done been some fun in there, actually, in between that year. It ain't been all bad. Let's just say that. It ain't been all good, but it ain't been all bad, And so, only thing I could do now is prepare for this next holiday that's coming up. And speaking of holiday, last year, when the holidays came around, see, now I can appreciate how them holidays came around last year. See, when my son passed over, I was, like I said, my spirit was wide open at that time. So while all that stuff was wide open, and stuff just hitting you, just left and right. Every time you think that things is smooth for the moment, something else will come right in and hit you right again. And it don't take long. It come in and it hit you right again. And this right here was in the beginning. I'm talking about days, within days and weeks of my son passing. I'm talking about in between his funeral, in between the time he passed and his funeral. There's going to be times in between there where you're going to be at ease for a minute, and then you're going to get a phone call or something from somebody, and it's going to pull your energy back down. I went through that right there for longer than between his funeral and the time he passed. I went through that right there for months. So because of that right there, I wasn't able to see the stuff that I see now. And that's why I say now, in hindsight, yeah, I can go back. I can look at this stuff now in hindsight, and I can actually see certain things. I really can. And you will be able to. If this help anybody, you will be able to see this stuff too. Again, it ain't been all good, but it ain't been all bad either. You know what I'm saying? That's what it all gonna boil down to. You're gonna have to, your perception is gonna play a main part, and your discernment is gonna play a main part, because I'm telling you, for one, your perception is gonna be, I think, number one out the two, in my opinion, because your perception deals with the way that you see the situation. And if you can't see that situation no different than what you were seeing it a year ago, you're probably going to have some problems with discernment. You see what I'm saying? You're not going to be able to make the right discernment in assessing the situation again. You see? And so when you doing that right there, what you essentially doing is you retelling the story. That's what you're doing. You retelling the story. You retelling the story in a different way. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're lying. What you're doing is you're reminding yourself of pretty much who you are. That's what you're doing. You're reminding yourself of who you are, and you looking at that situation not from a physical standpoint. You're looking at it now from a spirit standpoint. You see, and when you do that right there, you're able to look at that situation a little different. When you look at it from a spirit standpoint, you don't see the physical bodies laying all over everywhere, or you don't see no autopsy pictures and all that stuff, and funerals and graveyards and all that other. You don't see none of that stuff no more. You don't see that stuff no more. You know what I'm saying? That's the stuff that you're seeing with the physical, and it's hard to get out. That's the reason. That was another reason why I said, you know, I appreciate the funerals and the funeral thing and everything, but in general, I think we as a people need to stay away from those, because it keep you from seeing the stuff that I've been describing to y'all, because you ain't gonna be able to see it, because you being blocked by looking at that coffin close. You being blocked by looking at that coffin go on the ground. You being blocked by listening to all the loud organ music that's being played while the service is going on, when everybody quiet and mingling on. You being blocked by the sad 2-minute stories that people say when they come up there to the podium to get their last remarks, they 2-minute remarks and stuff like that. All that stuff right there, and you being bombarded by all this stuff right here. And if you can't find your way up out of that, if you can't see your way up out of all that stuff right there, then it's going to make it that much more harder to recover. So for the people that's not ready to let that stuff go yet, you can start your recovery, for one, at the funeral service. You can start your recovery at the funeral service if you want to. And how do you go do that? If you gotta have a funeral service, have a closed coffin and wrap that coffin with a good picture. I said that before. You find the best picture that you can find of your loved one, and you wrap that coffin with it, and you have a closed coffin. So therefore, nobody see that coffin closed. That means that you don't get a memory of that right there, because it's going to take too long to leave. You don't see nobody winding nobody down in no coffin. You don't see none of that. What you see is a happy picture on that coffin, and that right there will do something different. Because I'm telling you, when my son's coffin was wrapped with one of the pictures that he had, that right there was a lot more easier to stomach than watching that coffin close on him. That was a lot more easier to stomach. And I would have had to live with watching that happen. I don't want to live with watching the coffin close. So, you know, I could look at that situation as being angry, or I could look at that right there part as possibly being a blessing, so to say. You know what I'm saying? When it came down to him passing, because a lot of people will say, hey, wait a minute, my child had to have a closed coffin, and that right there would take you over the top. It boiled in the beginning. That boiled my blood that my son had to have a closed coffin. But when I started looking at it from a different lens, remember, perception. When I changed my perception on it, my perception said, hey, you know what? Maybe it was meant for him to have a closed coffin so you wouldn't see that. Huh? Maybe it was made that way, so this right here is the way that you made to remember him. You ain't going to be made to remember him in the last seeing him in the coffin. You will see his face on the coffin, which is much more easier to stomach. Whether your loved one in a good position or not to be seen, if they viewable or not, just to take that element, that part out of it. You know what I'm saying? The closing of the coffin and stuff like that. Hey, that would do some justice. Because I'm telling you, for me, I stomached a lot. I don't know if I'd be where I'm at right now if I had to watch that coffin close. I don't know. Like I said, I watched the coffin go down. I watched the coffin go down in the ground. I did that. But to see it actually close, and that right there do something else. And that's what I'm talking about, y'all. When you see stuff like that, you can't allow your spirit to stay connected to that. That right there is what typically stop you from being able to grow, from being able to elevate spiritually. Is because physically you still connected to all that stuff that I just named. You still connected to all that stuff. And you can only be connected to that stuff in this physical realm. As long as it's being physical, as long as you in this physical realm, physical thinking, and all the other stuff, you're going to be connected to it. And so when that day come around, you're going to connect yourself to the day that it happened. So November 9th come around. You know what I'm saying? Here it is, November 9th. Do that mean that I rip myself to pieces mentally? See, only I can do that. You see what I'm saying? Only I can do that. November 9th is another day. Yeah, it marks a year, but November 9th is another day. Whatever day my child passed on, after that right there, it was another day. Yeah, it can be recognized. Absolutely. You can recognize it. But it's another day at this point. Because if it's not just another day, then you keep yourself in the loop. You don't want to be in that in a loop. It's like a loop that you can see that you will put yourself back in, you know, and I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. I'd rather learn something else. So now, instead of looking at it as, you know, on the physical end, yeah, my son lost his life in vain for absolutely nothing to somebody, in my opinion, that did it on purpose. In my opinion, you know what I'm saying? That's if I want to look at it on the physical end. On the spirit end, you over there on the other side helping me out now, brother, because without that right there, I probably wouldn't have went this path. And not so much of that right there. I learned something in that process. In that process, what I learned was, because we done all been here before, he wasn't really a little boy, for real. Physically, on the physical end, he was, you know, young in terms of age. Physically, on the physical realm, he had a 7-year-old body. He had a 7-year-old body. He much older than that. And that's the reason why, you know, when y'all look at some of these kids, y'all, man, it seems like they done been here before. And this person done been here before, and they doing stuff, and that's exactly what happened. These kids done been here before, and we associate their body, the age of their body, with their spirit, when their spirit is much older than their body. That's a different story. It's a different subject. I'm not going to really fall into that right there. But, yeah, that was just something that I learned along the way. You know, like, it's a whole bunch of old souls around here. You got a newborn baby. That baby that's just a new body. The soul that's in that baby, the spirit that's in that baby, done been here many a times. But nonetheless, I'm about to get up out of here. I wanted to hit y'all with that. I'm going to drop a reel later on. I do got a reel that I want to, you know, put out for Junior and everything. And that's it, man. I get with y'all later. Hey, Uncle Ronnie, YouTube, Ronnie84_ TikTok. Get with me, man. And thanks for y'all support. I really appreciate that. For y'all that done been here with me and rocking out and stuff like that, I really appreciate y'all support. It's some of y'all in here that I know that done been in here, you know, that done been rocking with me for the past year, you know, and really supporting me, man. I appreciate that too. I wanted to always say that. I just be forgetting in my videos and stuff like that. So I appreciate y'all that you know, been rolling with me, giving me support, you know what I'm saying? And even in some cases, constructive criticism. Appreciate it.